Welcome everybody to the Off the Mic Wrestling Show here on YouTube. I'm doing this, taping this late Saturday night. This will be coming out on Sunday morning for those of you viewing it. I needed to address some things that happened on AEW Collision, and also some of the stuff that AEW has planned for Cardiff next week, leading into All In, and need to give like this, little vibe check really for what's going on with AEW, because I feel like I have kind of trumpeted a lot of the problems with this company, but a lot of them have been highlighted with some of the matches that have been made and some of the stuff that has happened in the last couple days. So Collision on Saturday night starts off with a match I don't know why we needed to see. Britt Baker versus Harley Cameron only went 5 minutes. It was kind of harmless. Britt Baker gets a stomp in for the win. Again, very harmless. But then Mercedes Moné and Camille come out and do what they should have done last week, or if the angle was better executed, maybe they wouldn't have needed to do this, and maybe they would have done something on Dynamite this week. But because it was so horrendously executed, Britt Baker looked like she didn't want to be there. She got in the ring really slow. Mercedes looked stupid. Camille looked stupid by backing away from a kendo stick shot. So Britt goes to get the kendo stick as Camille and Mercedes are coming down to the ring. Camille blocks it. Camille then breaks the kendo stick over her knee, showing off her power. She then beats the shit out of Britt. And the heels stand tall at the end of this. By the way, Mercedes again wearing high heels and diminishing her bodyguard, who's supposed to be the bigger, intimidating person in this faction or group. And it's just like, yeah, this was a slam dunk for AEW. Like, this really was. And some people will point to the suspension that Britt had, which has been shot down by MJF and Britt. But man, like, you have two, like, the quintessential AEW women's superstar in Britt Baker, and then you've got Mercedes Moné, an outsider who's been out of wrestling, was this big high-profile free agent, and this has been an absolute turd sandwich. Like, this has absolutely been just a wet fart of a feud. It's embarrassing. And to have to do this in an impromptu, just barely announced match, to put it on Collision, which, by the way, if you want to be one of these colliders, as they call, nobody watches that show. That gets half of AEW's basic audience that they get for Dynamite. Nobody's watching this. So now you've set up and done an angle, which, okay, it's fine. You've got the heels, got some heat, but it's kind of just like desperation heat. And this match is as ice cold as it can be, when this could have been one of the biggest women's matches potentially that AEW could do. And it's just a mess going into this, because Mercedes has just kind of mailed it in. Britt feels like she's mailed it in. I kind of feel bad for Camille, because this was supposed to be like her big coming out party as, like, the bodyguard and entrance into AEW, but she's kind of been made to look like a fool. She does get some heat and destroy Britt Baker, but at what cost? Like, I mean, as excited as I was initially off the build, man, this is just like the heat. It's just, it's a lot like what AEW's been doing, and I don't know what the hell happened. So yeah, that was an odd way for Collision to start. Then you get a video package hyping up July 12th next year, All In at Globe Life Field. I didn't know this. The Arlington Texas mayor is named Jim Ross. How about that? So he's shown sitting in the front row. This is the last part of their Arlington residency at the Esports Stadium, which is down the road from Globe Life Field. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And it'll be interesting to see what they can do for All In Dallas, in the Dallas Arlington area next year. So then we get, okay, I don't understand this whatsoever. So it's Mike Bennett and Matt Taven of the Kingdom defending the Ring of Honor tag team titles on an AEW show against Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara, who have been teaming with each other for like 2 weeks. And Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara win the Ring of Honor tag team titles. What? I am happy for Dustin Rhodes. He's a double champion in the last month, which is awesome. Dustin Rhodes is also 55 years old, and all due respect to him, he shouldn't be like highly featured on television. And also, we've talked about how problematic Sammy Guevara has been in his AEW career, yet he continues to get high profile spots. And there's a lot of, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert of Ring of Honor tag teams on television. They have a lot of tag teams that were a hell of a lot more deserving than Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara. And that being said, I am happy for Dustin. I love Goldust, love the Natural. I think it's awesome that he's had this career renaissance in AEW. A lot due to the fact that incredible match that he had at Double or Nothing 2019 against his brother Cody Rhodes. So, but why? Why did this need to happen on Collision? Why did you need to have a title change with Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara going over? And it further hammers home the point, and some of this is not their fault. It's just strictly the fact that management kind of failed them, and also health of Adam Cole kind of screwed this. The Undisputed Kingdom has got to go down as one of the worst comprised and worst thought out and worst booked factions that I have ever seen in the history of professional wrestling. These guys have done absolutely, positively nothing. And Adam Cole got taken off TV. Wardlow, I have no fucking idea where Wardlow has been. I mean, Roderick Strong had a semi-decent run with the International Championship before dropping it to Will Ospreay. And then Matt Taven and Mike Bennett have just basically been getting their asses kicked, and they've held the Ring of Honor tag team titles. But are we supposed to give a shit about them? So this two things got hammered home with this match. Is that the Undisputed Kingdom, which was already dead on arrival, is completely and utterly dead and is probably one of the worst factions that's ever been devised in the history of pro wrestling. And what in the fuck is going on with these tag team titles? Like I said, I'm not going to pretend that I know what's going on with Ring of Honor, but it's like you put a thrown together tag team 2 weeks after they started teaming. Sammy Guevara just got back, and they're the Ring of Honor tag team champions. What the fuck? So, but yeah, like I said, cool for Dustin Rhodes. I mean, nice for you to be a double champion. But like I said, he's 55 years old. He's better than most 55-year-olds wrestling today. But it's kind of an indictment on the way Ring of Honor is booked. And it almost feels like they're kind of throwing him a bone because Cody's getting all of this love and respect in WWE. And he was their cornerstone guy who was the big reason Dustin went there. So a lot of it's just in bad taste for me. So we get a video package after this, hyping up Swerve versus Bryan Danielson. You get a bunch of people making predictions, assortment of people. Listen, I'm hyped up for this match. The story is a little bit weird, and there was something later in the show with Eddie Kingston being involved, which, you know, it kind of helps a little bit. But again, I think with, you know, Swerve obviously having the match with Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door, and then you obviously had Blood and Guts being right after the Owen Hart Cup tournament, so there really built a lot of the build was taken away. And again, my biggest problem with Blood and Guts is Hangman and Swerve felt like the bigger deal in that match, that you should have booked that match. But I understand why Bryan Danielson's in this match. It's effectively the end of his full-time wrestling career, but they're making it seem like he's done. So, but I do like that they're leaning into the possibility, hey, this might be it. So, then we get, God forbid, Chris Jericho on television getting interviewed by Renee Paquette. Apparently on Dynamite, Chris Jericho's facing Tommy Billington, the Dynamite Kid, who's looked really good in some other shows. But why do we keep giving Chris Jericho? I talk about 55-year-olds or 50-year-olds that don't need television time. At least Dustin Rhodes can work, and he's been semi-okay. Chris Jericho is just borderline unwatchable at this point. Not borderline, he is unwatchable. And this learning tree gimmick is just worn out my patience and a lot of other people's patience. Tony Khan just continues to do it because because he doesn't have a sack to tell Chris Jericho fuck off, because that's just Tony Khan. Jericho also said Hook is stupid from wanting to face him at All In with one eye. We know what's happening here. Hook's gonna be okay. We saw this with Jon Moxley when he won the world title at Revolution 2020. I can tell you where this is going. Again, Jericho says Billington's entitled, calls it a warm-up match. Just like, why do we need Chris Jericho on television? Listen, I'll say this about Collision. They've done a really good job, and the next thing coming out of this was a hologram, who's been really entertaining. There's not a real whole lot of background or story to it, but I think that's kind of the nature of AEW. But they're kind of sticking to it. So he has a match with Angelico. Goes about 8 minutes. He does a bunch of his cool spots. He's gotten over with the fans, but they got to start doing something significant with this guy, and maybe start putting him on Dynamite, because the problem is you're giving him an opportunity to highlight, and this is what really Collision should be utilized for, is getting over underutilized or new talent and putting them on a big and giving them that type of platform. But then you got to translate that into, like, say, put them on Dynamite, and really I haven't seen that translate. So I hope they do something with Hologram relatively soon. But a harmless 8-minute match with Angelico, who's a glorified jobber at this point, but good enough. Then they did something really good here that I liked. I hope they re-show this package at some point on Dynamite this week, but they're going to have a face-to-face, which is probably going to open the show. So we had a video package talking about the Tiger Driver 91. So Excalibur's narrating it, talking about its origins. Will Ospreay speaks about the danger because opponent's effectively defenseless, and so he said he doesn't want to use the move, and then ends the interview. So listen, I have said this since that bullshit finish in the first match that went almost 60 minutes. The only acceptable finish to this match is Will Ospreay hits the Tiger Driver, maybe a hidden blade, and pins MJF and wins back the American Championship and rebrands it as the International title. That's the only acceptable finish. Otherwise, all of this, what the fuck are we doing? What in the blue hell are we doing if that doesn't happen? Because they are now really starting to lean into the Tiger Driver as being a move that needs to be used. They've had this arc going on since the Danielson match, and they better happen. It better not get kicked out of. Otherwise, again, what the fuck are we doing? Then we get Jack Perry, who has literally done nothing since win the TNT title. He has a non-title match against some guy named Danny Orion, and he wins it in about a minute. Jack Perry he pulls out a body bag, sprayed it, painted half of the guy's face. He places this guy in a body bag, which had Darby's name painted on top of it. Perry spits on the old TNT title belt, puts it inside the bag with Orion, and he unveils this new TNT title belt. Why does Tony Khan keep just reintroducing titles? Like, we've had many of these happen in the last, like, God knows how long. This Jack Perry title reign has just been a whole bunch of nothing. At least Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, who previously held that title, actually did some good with it. I don't know what Jack Perry has done with this. I mean, and who's to say what's going to happen in this coffin match with Darby Allin at All In? Because Darby Allin's got a world title match like literally a month later. So, I don't know. So then, leading into hour two, we get a video hyping up the House of Black and talking about Christian Cage screwing him over, followed by the Bang Bang Gang members doing the same. So Christopher Daniels, who sometimes is, I don't know, like, sometimes he has a role as an authority figure. Sometimes Tony Khan's not going past him and just telling Tony Schiavone. It's really confusing, the authority hierarchy that they have on television. But Christopher Daniels watches this video, talks to the camera, and basically says, hey, patriarchy, you're defending the Trios Championships in a 4-way match. That's going to be a London Ladders match. And a fourth team is going to be determined on Collision next week in Cardiff. So it's going to be the Patriarchy, House of Black, and the Bang Bang Gang against somebody. I have no idea who it's going to be, but we've got a 4-way there, so they're not doing the exact same build as the tag team division, but still, it's pretty stupid how we got here, how we got to the Patriarchy getting the championships. Nick Wayne's done nothing. The whole Christian character, Christian's just so effing good that I'm willing to look past a little bit of this. But again, it's the same character he's had for 2 years. Shayna Wayne, or Mother Wayne, walking around with a trios belt is ridiculous, in my opinion. Like, and you're just like, speaking down to Luchasaurus. I can't even call him Kill Switch. It's just like, this has been going on for so long with the build to them. At some point, there's got to be a payoff. I don't know what's going to happen in the match at All In, but they've done a really good job of making these trios belts still completely and utterly insignificant with the way that they have built, with the way they have booked them since their inception a couple years ago. So then another match that was just randomly announced on the internet that I saw, Claudio Castagnoli against Lio Rush, which admittedly, fine match. Two really good wrestlers. Why did this need to happen? Claudio has got a match against Kazuchika Okada for the Continental Championship on freaking Dynamite in Cardiff next week. Why is he wrestling a nondescript, just random match that is thrown onto television just for the sake of being thrown onto television? Claudio wins. I mean, Lio Rush sells his ass off because he's a little guy, and and these guys are freaky athletes, and they're going to do crazy stuff. But again, there's no meaning and there's no story to this. And this is my problem with this show and why I need to kind of highlight it. Then we get something kind of interesting. It's Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway. They're facing Tomohiro Ishii and Willow Nightingale in a mixed tag on the All In 0 hour, which I think is entirely disrespectful to these two women and what they've been able to build as a secondary or third billing women's feud. This should be on the main show. These are fantastic. And I like Ishii, and I think Stokely is very entertaining, but I was wondering why this was on the why they're not doing a title match or a singles match between Willow and Statlander. Well, that's because I guess what was said is Stokely talked with Tony Khan and said there's a stipulation in this mixed tag that whoever wins gets to choose the stipulation between Willow and Statlander for All Out in Chicago a couple weeks later. Then Stokely says, "I'm the Stone Pitbull around here," and he does a comically bad bark. So Stokely's very entertaining. Him and Stat have been really good together. This actually makes some degree of sense, but again, you're doing this on Collision, a show that nobody watches. So why? Then this was interesting, but again, the timing of this and where it was put really just does not make a whole lick of sense. So Eddie Kingston, a tape video package from his couch. He obviously he's got a long way to go with his leg that he broke earlier this year. He basically asked what Bryan Danielson has been appearing on Dynamite lately. He said the Danielson he's been seeing lately is disrespectful to sport, and he'll get beat by Swerve at All In. Then Eddie asked why he was doing this match if this isn't who he is. He asked if Danielson would write his last love song to pro wrestling or if he would just go in and lose because he doesn't have it anymore. Eddie also said Danielson needs to figure it out, and if you don't, then what's the point? This was effective, but again, I think they are doing this way too late. This is 8 days before the pay-per-view, and to hammer home this narrative that Danielson's kind of like, I mean, we had the Jeff Jarrett stuff that led to this. We had the Wheeler Yuta stuff. Again, having blood and guts in the middle and Bryan Danielson just away from all of this, you lost 2 weeks of build that you really could have used in this feud. And the heat that could have been really applied, and there still is, obviously, with the title versus career stipulation and Swerve kind of playing like a pseudo heel, that's fine. But again, this is kind of a microcosm of just like the mismanagement of once these matches were put on the table, they kind of just put their pencils down and just like you said, let's just see what happens. And that's not how you're booking shows. That's not how you should. You should handle these with care. And then that leads me into Mariah May, who for whatever reason had a match on this show, a squash match against somebody named London Dior. Mariah gets a hip attack and a Storm Zero for the win to taunt Toni Storm. Toni Storm, she gets her new film play, and so that sort of sets the stage. For whatever reason, and this was set up on Rampage last night, Toni Storm is defending the AEW Women's World Championship against Saraya at Dynamite in Cardiff 4 days before the pay-per-view. What? Saraya, I understand that she was the women's champion because she was effectively the place filler for Jamie Hayter getting hurt last year. What in the fuck are we doing giving Saraya of all people, who has literally been on Rampage and barely been on AEW television for a large chunk of this year, why are we giving her a world championship match 4 days before one of what was supposed to be one of your hottest women's feuds that's completely cooled off since the big heel turn from Mariah May? This makes no sense. And don't tell me, oh, this is going to set up a post-match angle. Why are you did the same thing with Hikaru Shida and gave her a title match when you know that, hey, why are you giving a title match when it's already on the bill for literally months that you've had Mariah May versus Toni Storm as one of your top women's matches? Same thing with Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker. You knew that Mercedes wasn't losing that match last week. Why do they continue to do this for the sake of just booking shit? Like, that just irritated the fuck out of me. It happens on Rampage. Nobody knows why the fuck it's happening. You can try and frame it all you want, but what in the fuck has Saraya done? All due respect to her and what she's done in help building women's wrestling to what it is, she is nowhere near the female performer or talent that she was in WWE a decade ago. She is not that valuable anymore. And so why is she getting a women's championship match 4 days before the biggest show of your year? That makes no fucking sense whatsoever. So, holy shit, man. And then we get to the end of this thing, and I got a bunch to say about this. I'm not going to run through, you know, move for move what happened in this, because, I mean, it was admittedly a good match, but we all knew what this finish was for FTR versus the Acclaimed to determine who was going to be the number one contender. We knew what was going to happen. I'm actually glad that they did not do a DQ finish here. I'm really glad that they didn't do that. And they went with a 30-minute time limit draw here to actually, you know, set the stage and, you know, set up the fact that this is going to be a triple threat or three-way, as they call it in AEW, between FTR, the Young Bucks, and the Acclaimed. Here's my problem. This is almost identical to the tag team title match that they did last year. The only thing that is different is the only two things that are different in this. Well, actually, there's three things. Okay. Number one, Bucks are the champs. FTR was last year. Number two, Bucks are heel. They were both baby faces last year. And number three, the Acclaimed is in there for whatever reason. And the Acclaimed is not even close to the act that they were a year or two ago. They have gotten ice cold. Max Caster's saying offensive stuff on the microphone and getting away with it. Anthony Bowens is really the only redeeming part of this whole thing. Dax and Cash really have done next to nothing since they lost the tag team titles to Ricky Starks and Big Bill. Ricky Starks is probably leaving the company very soon to go to WWE. But my God, this is for a company that prided itself off of tag team wrestling. Holy shit, this division is sunk to a new low, because you are literally, like I just named you, there is basically three obvious things that have changed, but basically you are effectively running back the same match that you did last year at All In, and you are just adding the Acclaim to it and making it a three-way. And what's different from this than the trios division? They're adding a fourth team to make these builds not the same thing. But it's effectively the same thing. You had a DQ finish that set up, or you had a time limit situation that set up the ultimate match that has every team involved in the match at Wembley Stadium. So, like I said, what the fuck are we doing? And it's just like the level of talent in this division and the level of talent in this company, it should be, there's the builds and stuff, and these feuds should feel so much more significant, because the card on paper looks really good, but it's just like when you sit back and think about, okay, and I'm not doubting that it's going to be a good show. AEW's never had a problem with putting on good pay-per-views, and I don't doubt that this will feel big. But some of these matches have just been horrendously booked and don't feel nearly as important or have nearly enough heat behind it to make this feel like a WrestleMania level show. So let's look at the card real fast here to just, this is kind of my point of having this little special edition here of the Off the Mic Wrestling Show. Hit that subscribe button at OT Mike Wrestling here on YouTube. Follow me at Off the Mic 28 on Twitter, or follow the show at OT Mike Wrestling. We have a lot of great content through the week. I love doing this. If you have feedback for me, if you don't agree with something, if you're an AEW fan and you think I'm full of shit, well, I'll tell you that you're full of shit, because I think what I'm saying is right, but it's my opinion. I'm entitled to it. Okay, so we have 10 matches in total. One is on the 0 hour pre-show, and that's Chris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway versus Willow Nightingale and Tomohiro Ishii. Okay, I mean, you've got three good wrestlers and a manager in this match, so that's Toni Storm and Mariah May, which could have been honestly a really well built feud and had some great heat off of that heel turn. It has just died a cruel death. I thought they brought Toni Storm back way too early. And then a lot of this has just been filler matches and them doing each other's moves and the movies and stuff. And it's just now we're getting a nonsensical Toni Storm championship defense against Saraya, which we know she's going to win. Again, no sense to it. MJF Ospreay will probably be one of the matches of the show because these are two great wrestlers. They wrestled a fantastic match on television with a bullshit finish. That should be a great match. There's, like I said, only one acceptable finish. Jack Perry and Darby Allin actually should be pretty good. These guys work really well together. But the whole build of this has felt weird. And then Darby having a world championship match a month later. How's that going to affect this match? I have no idea. Mercedes and Britt has been an unmitigated disaster. This is one of the biggest failures in AEW's history because this was about as easy of a feud as you could build. There wasn't a whole lot of nuance there. There wasn't a whole lot. The story was there. You've got an outsider in Mercedes who's trying to become the face of the women's division in this company, and you've got the original face. And they have done next to nothing. And some of that might be just personal with what's happened with Britt and backstage. Maybe Britt doesn't want to be there anymore. Mercedes is just kind of cashing checks at this point. And then Camille gets roped into it, and she's felt really insignificant in this too, because Mercedes is like wearing high heels, which is diminishing the size of Camille. And then you got Camille, like, she looked a lot better in this angle that they did on Collision, but they didn't really need to do it. But because the angle on Dynamite was so awful in execution, it's almost like they had to do this to kind of follow up on it. But this has been a train wreck of a feud. And I hope the match is good. I don't doubt the match is going to be good because Mercedes is awesome wrestling. Britt's pretty good. But man, like getting to this point has just felt like nails on a chalkboard. This has just been bad. So then we've got the Casino Gauntlet match, expecting some surprises in there. Orange Cassidy is number one in that match. So who's to say how long this match is going to go? It'll be interesting to see who gets the AEW World Championship match following Darby Allin. Interesting that they're booking two title defenses in advance, which is weird because you're going to have Darby getting the match at Grand Slam, and then I'm assuming whoever wins this match is going to either get it on Dynamite television or at Wrestle Dream, potentially, which would be the night, or maybe they do it at All Out, or it would be Wrestle Dream because I don't know how that would set things up. Then you got Chris Jericho against Hook. Hook should win that match because Hook without the FTW. I mean, maybe it's good. It would be good for Hook to get away from the FTW title, but at this point, what's the point in him getting on this horrendously built Jericho Vortex learning tree thing if Hook doesn't get his comeuppance? So I think Hook should win that match. You got the tag team match between the Bucks, FTR, and the Acclaimed. You've got the Patriarchy, Bang Bang Gang, House of Black, and a fourth team to be named later. I have no idea who the fuck the fourth team is because there's some random ass trios that are out there, but they're gonna have a match effectively, I think on Collision. I can't even remember, to set up whatever this is going to be. And then you've got Swerve Strickland versus Bryan Danielson, and I think Bryan Danielson is going to be the world champion at the end of this. But yeah, this like a lot of this is admittedly a decent card, but the problem is it's like it doesn't feel as big as it should feel. Much like last year where they just threw a bunch of multi-man matches on show and just kind of got away with it because, hey, the novelty of being in Wembley Stadium with 80,000 people. There's only going to be 50 in this one. And the buzz behind this is significantly down from last year. Like, it's not nearly at the same level of excitement that it was a year ago. And again, like I said, just a bunch of nonsense going on a show that nobody watches. And there's not a lot of effort being put into it because you have two squash matches. You have matches that are thrown together at the last second on the internet. And again, nobody wants to watch a basic wrestling show on a Saturday night. They want to watch a pay-per-view or a high-level show. So something's got to give with Collision after this new TV deal comes up. They got to reimagine it in some capacity. And I'm curious to see what happens. All In's a week away. And again, there's not a whole hell of a lot they can do now to really hype up everything. Like, they wasted a lot of quality build and are just banking on, like, you know, the high profile names that are involved in these feuds to kind of carry the weight. And maybe that works, but I'm not optimistic. So thanks for tuning into this one. We'll be back on Monday with a Raw review. And thanks for supporting the channel. Again, follow, like, share, subscribe, hit that button. I will love you forever. OT Mike Wrestling on YouTube here and also on Twitter. And follow me at Off the Mic 28. Thanks for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.